Thank you, Amanda, for joining us.
Thanks, Colette, for that introduction. And George, actually, thank you so much, because I feel like a lot of things you talked about segue really nicely into what I'm going to be discussing with pivoting during COVID-19. And so before we begin, I do just want to briefly touch base on the mission of the Moscow Farmers Market, which is to celebrate life on the Palouse by providing the community with the opportunity to buy and sell locally farmed and or created agricultural products, distinctive handmade goods, artisan pieces, and original recipe cuisine. And this venue is meant to encourage and support sustainable economic, social, and environmental practices. So jumping into what I do, boots on the ground, eyes on the ground as a community events manager for the city of Moscow. And really my obligations are to assess market operations and ensure it is in alignment with the philosophies and values as set forth by the Farmers Market Commission. So we just want to make sure we're continuing the success that we've seen over the past 40 plus years. And I do want to briefly touch base on why I titled this talk Pivoting During COVID-19, because that word pivot is so applicable to the businesses, and we are working with businesses with the farmers market. And I recently came across an article reading about that or describing that term. And the main goal of pivoting is to help a company improve revenue or survive in a marketplace, and should only be considered when absolutely necessary. And I think our first response to COVID, our first pivot, was developing the Motor Inn Moscow Farmers Market and its online ordering and curbside pickup service. And it absolutely was necessary. In the spring, Colette touched base on this. We had farmers and producers really concerned about moving their products while they remained viable. You can't tell a seed to stop sprouting, you can't tell a prune tree to slow its bud production, and you can't tell a pig to stop growing, and people are always going to need access to food. So that was really what we were focused on, offering the Motor Inn Moscow Farmers Market. So once we kind of got that sorted out and that up and running, our next pivot was the downtown market, which is in a normal year, a kind of a beast to manage. And while we were deemed essential by the Idaho governor's office, we weren't really given direction as market managers to say which businesses as part of the farmers market were essential. And so the month of June really provided testing grounds for the implementation of public safety measures at an event that typically attracts over 10,000 people per Saturday. And I apologize for the lag in the video. We are working through that. But one thing that we learned pretty quickly in June, some of the things that we thought could work for our market didn't work for our market. So the single entry point was a no-go. People were really used to moving through the market naturally from downtown businesses into the main thoroughfare. We did our best to implement some visual cues from distance dots that we put on the asphalt, just to remind folks to be mindful of neighbor spaces. Vendors were really great about reconfiguring their booths or putting up their own visual cues, such as rope in front of their tents. Just again, maintaining that space. And I think we'll actually continue to see that into 2021. I did hear from quite a few vendors that they actually preferred to handle their own produce and not have customers rifling through it. So I think that's something that we could see from some of our smaller growers. But I think the largest thing that I saw that was the biggest impact on me was that the absence of other vendor types early in the season, in June in particular, really created this greater competition environment, which I think proved to us essentially how important all of our vendors are with the Moscow Farmers Market. Yes, it's about the farmers and getting food out to people, but the craft vendors and the prepared food vendors are really what make our market as special as it is. So again, how do we maintain encouraging people to come shop safely, but also not necessarily linger longer? So when I'm thinking broadly about our community needs as we come into 2021, there's two perspectives that I'd like to offer, which is From the market perspective, we really need to continue to be a venue that provides an array of price options for folks to access from varying economic backgrounds, and balance that with the focus of small independent startup businesses and small family farms. And making sure that, yes, they're putting forward the price amount that they believe that their products are worth, but then making sure that we also have other price points for people to access that. I think from a larger perspective, what the pandemic really showed me was we really need state and federal folks to have some innovation with food access programs. It's really time for them to come into the 21st century and bridge the digital divide. We did not see the sort of SNAP and EBT engagement with the motor-in market that I was hoping for, because it was kind of a complicated process for them. And again, with our Washington State Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program and WIC checks, those are paper checks. It requires some stamping and some other things. And so we really need to start thinking about how these things can come into more of a digital realm and still get the money to the farmers and make sure those people using those benefits are accessing them. So thanks, everyone.
Amanda, I apologize for those technical issues. You did not even miss a beat. So thank you for that incredible talk.
Do you have any questions for Amanda and the Moscow Farmers Market?
Amanda, can you talk just a little bit more about what you're anticipating this next season to look like?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to 2021. I think we learned a lot last year, and we took, kind of like George said, we were really cautious with the city. And a lot of things were, dictated to me as a city program, but I stand behind those decisions 100%. But knowing what we know now, I think we are moving forward to offer market on May 1. We're hoping to bring all of our vendors back. We won't see a single entry point. We learned a lot about that. But I think, we've learned and worked with a lot of the vendors that we want to provide options and work with them where they can manage their business efficiently, but also safely. And I think we're going to provide the right options that people can kind of choose a la carte, at least providing some basic minimum requirements for them to meet.